Now, YouTubers, Fortune Cookie 45 LC coming to you from the hot lead zone. And you know, when you do a search for grips, handgun grips on YouTube or on Google or whatever, you do a search and this is what you get. Grips. And we're all guilty of calling these things grips. But really, these things are technically stocks. And the stocks are attached to the grip frame of handguns. Now, why is this important? It's important because the grip is what attaches the shooter to the gun. This is the connection that we have with the gun. And if we're not connected to the gun, then we have nothing. So the grip is everything. This is a grip, how you hold the gun. This is a one-hand grip. It's a left-hand grip. This is the popular two-hand grip. And if you do a study on YouTube, you'll get a lot of information on the proper way to grip a gun, or the recommended way to grip a gun, or the contemporary way to grip a gun. But let's look at this. Now, you know that Fortune Cookie 45 LC likes to present information that you may not see on other YouTube videos. So you see, there is a grip where the shooter interfaces with a gun. But there's also the topic of how does the handgun interface with the shooter? Because that's part of the grip too. And technically, we're talking about the grip frame. Now, with some funny exceptions, like the broom handle Mauser, grip frames for handguns are basically of four types. One type is the single action grip, like you see here. We're talking about the grip frame, not the grip frame. So you have the single action grip frame, you have the double action revolver grip frame, and then for auto pistols you have the 1911 John Browning type of grip frame, and then you have the George Luger, or what I call the Raker grip frame. So four types. And this video is going to talk about the single action grip frame. Now, according to this NRA book on the history of firearms illustrated, the earliest practical handguns that came out were around the year 1650. So that's going on 400 years of handguns. Well, up until the year 1970, there's the 1970 Gun Digest, and there's an article here about the benefits of two-fisted handgunning. Well, that's because the encouragement here is to try shooting with two hands instead of one, because before 1970, one hand was most often used. Well, it turns out the military was doing a lot of encouragement for two-handed for some applications back in the 1940s. But still, the one-handed was used for a lot of point shooting and this kind of thing. And what the military was pushing was really something like this, the old cup and saucer hold, or the hold the wrist. Basically, the gun was still shot one-handed, but the supporting hand was starting to sneak into it a little bit like this. And that's what the military was kind of pushing back in the 40s. So you basically had about 320 years where the handgun was shot with one hand. And certainly if you look at the old West movies and the way they did things back in the 1920s with Elliot Ness and the Untouchables and all of the popular articles and writing, you never saw two-handed shooting until about the 1970s. And ever since then, the two-hand has been pushed But let's look at these. Turns out that handguns, and that's why they're called handguns, were designed to be shot with one hand. So you'll notice that it's not called a hands gun. It's called a hand, singular gun. And also, NRA bullseye shooting is still done with one hand as a discipline for the one-hand gun. And even though it's been blamed to be archaic and NRA needs to change rules, unfortunately, if you allow the newer shooters to shoot the NRA bullseye course with two hands, it will obviate all of the records from the past. So you see what Samuel Colt did back in the 1850 or so. He took the plow handle shape because that's the shape that the hand makes. See how it fits right in there? Well, Samuel Colt made this to interface with the shooter. And because it's single action, you got to cock the hammer. You had to have access to the hammer with your thumb, because your other hand is holding a pair of reins for your horse. And the way this is designed is when you fire the round, the gun rolls up in your hand like this and makes it very easy to cock the pistol as it's brought back down into recoil, from recoil. And you reacquire the grip. So it was designed that way, and because the grip frame fits into the grip of the shooter perfectly, the bore is right down the arm. So that the reputation for Sam Colt having a very natural pointing pistol is from that. And some shooters really like the idea that the bore points down the forefinger or the thumb. And you'll see that naturally the thumb and the forefinger want to point down the bore for a single action grip with the single action grip frame. You see, you go like this, put your thumb right against there, and it's pointing right down the bore. You put your finger right there on the cylinder, it's pointing right down the bore. Could that be why the single action grip frame points so naturally? Now, of course, we don't have our thumb and our forefinger there. It's there, and it's there on the trigger. But the fact of the matter is, your hand knows where the forefinger wanted to point, and now the bore is doing it for us. And YouTubers, when you listen to all the contemporary guys out there and gals telling us how to put the second hand on there, the main thing, the main connection to the gun is still your strong hand. That's one hand, one strong hand on the gun. The second hand is the supporting hand. No matter how you wrap it around there, and no matter where you put your thumbs and where you put your forefinger, or wherever you do with your second hand, this is still the connection. So a lot of emphasis is being given on two-hand shooting, isosceles, reverse isosceles, weaver, all these different kinds of stances and everything. But when you get right down to it, there is the connection. There is the main part of the grip. Connection of the shooter to the gun to the shooter. The second hand's along for the ride. We slap it on there anyway, any way you want, but there's still the grip. So even though we shoot the contemporary two-hand systems, the handgun remains a one-hand gun. The modern systems revolve around recoil control so we can get more shots off faster and this kind of thing. But when you get right down to it, recoil is nothing new. Back in World War I, they were still dealing with the recoil of the 45 ACP round. The 45 Colt with 40 grains of black powder, 255 grain bullets, still had recoil. They had to deal with it. And remember, folks, the only shot that counts is the shot that hits. Doesn't matter how many shots you got in the magazine. If you get the shot that hits solidly in there, then all the other shots that come after will not be a problem. So YouTubers, doesn't matter what gun, what grip frame that your preference is, if the balloon goes up, our job is to deliver the shot that counts. Now please don't go around saying that Fortune Cookie 45 LC is trying to discount all the modern systems and all that kind of thing. I'm fully in favor of the modern systems, but we need to look at it in the way that it all interfaces with the past. So YouTubers, next time we're going to talk about the double action grip frame and how that works. But for now, the single action is what it is. YouTubers out there, take care. See you next video. Bye for now.